a guest this morning about one of my favorite subjects. We're going to be talking about, the language and how people talk nowadays and how they communicate and get their ideas across, So anyway, we'll be right back with our guest after these messages. Good morning, Bay Area. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us once again this morning. We appreciate this opportunity to come into your homes, your offices, your cars, your businesses, and to talk with you and share our thoughts. Just fell asleep at the wheel there. We're here to talk about the issues and events that affect our lives here in the Bay Area. I hope you listened yesterday and heard those wonderful people that were involved in the search for Nathan Madsen. I hope you can dip in your pockets a little bit and help them out. They need support on this effort. It's an ongoing effort, and they're very determined to resolve this issue one way or another. We're also here to talk with the people that make the Bay Area such a great place to work and live, and one of those people is with us this morning. I'm sure he shares some of my complaints and views about an issue we'll be discussing. Our guest today, Bob Shepard, Associate Professor of English at Southwestern Oregon Community College. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning.
Appreciate you joining us this morning.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's dive right into it. There's all kinds of teachers. There's teachers of computerese. There's teachers of literature, English. There are teachers that have a tendency to go in front of a class and say, read pages 379 through 572. We'll have a pop quiz on it tomorrow morning and walk out and have some coffee. What kind of a teacher are you? What does an English teacher do at Southwestern Oregon Community College?
Well, I think we live rather schizophrenic lives.
Okay. That'll get some people worried.
At the college, most of us devote about 3/4 of our working time to helping students learn how to write and write well. An additional quarter of the time is usually spent teaching a literature class or so in order to help people know how to read, enjoy, appreciate good literature.
Okay. Question I would have would be, how has teaching English changed in recent years?
Oh, I would say that there have been a couple of important changes in the 19 years that I've been there. And probably the major one is that we've been trying since about 1974, 75 or so to reach people who really are not prepared to tackle writing at the college level. We find hundreds of people who, for one reason or another, have never learned how to write and write effectively. What are those people to do? When I started teaching here in 1971, those people would come into an English composition class and fail. We recognized the problem. We thought that the only moral thing to do about it was to help bring those people up to the level, regardless of the reasons for their difficulties, and there are myriads of reasons, to help bring those people up to a beginning college-level writing so that we could take them the rest of the way through a college writing education.
I guess it brings the thought to me that a number of years back you might have found a lot of students perhaps taking English courses almost reluctantly, almost like they were driven by the whip. I've got to have it just
that hasn't changed.
To graduate. Really? I would think that today you would see more people, especially adults, coming because they just realized they needed it to survive and to climb the corporate ladder, to survive in civilian life and in business today. Have you seen any of that?
Well, yeah, we have seen that as our average age.
Well, that's what I meant. In other words, you have people coming to you realizing that they need it, maybe with a little more serious hunger for it than perhaps a number of years back, where the younger student was, again, almost forced into taking because you got to have it to graduate.
Well, unfortunately, they're both true.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of each, and we have some students who come with the noblest of intentions, as you suggest, and still in their actions sometimes they feel as though they're being required to do it.
Okay.
Of course, they are required to do it. That's
What I've noticed over the years, I was a recruiter for years, recruited professional people, engineers, draftsmen for major corporations, especially for oil companies down in Texas, where I got this accent I can't shake. But I would hazard a guess, and this isn't a statistic quote. This isn't a quote, so don't hold me to this. But I would hazard a guess that somewhere in the neighborhood of 50% of all clients that ever came to an agency looking for help in seeking employment were people that were very, very weak in English and in writing skills, people who couldn't put together a comprehensive resume that would really sell them to a prospective employer. And I just always felt that this was a weakness in our educational system, and I have seen a number of professionals over the years, people with master's degree in computer languages, go back to school to relearn English simply because they realized that in order to communicate with other people, they had to have a better command of the language. Do you see this sort of thing going on today?
Oh, I certainly do. I see people with, at all levels of college coming back, getting that act together that they hadn't gotten together previously when they realized that they must do it. And of course, they have found out the reason that the world has decided to put the requirements on writing classes. College freshmen all over the country are simply expected to take some writing classes and to improve their work. And that's because there's very little professional work anybody can do without being able to write some of the time.
Oh, yeah, because you get into areas in business where your thoughts have to be concise and precise and direct other people, perhaps other department heads in an organization, as to exactly a procedure or exactly what the plan is in future weeks. And let's face it, our language is so tricky that one or two words placed in the wrong place in an article or a letter, one or two misspelled words can change the whole bottom line meaning. And I think this has influenced a lot of people to have a greater appreciation. And unfortunately, those people who don't go back and pursue it and become more proficient at writing are going to find themselves kind of lagging behind in a lot of areas.
Well, that's certainly true. That bottom line meaning, even if it is not distorted in a piece of writing with errors in it, even if there's no distortion in the communication, there's a distraction that occurs in the minds of many readers.
Which can be just as bad as the distortion in many cases.
Well, absolutely. If there is a barrier being erected between the writer and the reader, the communication breaks down. So even though the meaning itself is not twisted, it's like static on the radio. If there's enough interference, people will give up. They'll stop trying to understand, and it's no better at that point than something that has had the meaning distorted.
Okay. Tim came up with an interesting question and wrote it down. You're a helpful fella, Tim. I appreciate this. Helps me along with the interview process here. His question has to do with, do you feel that the elementary and secondary schools are doing their job as far as giving children, young people, young adults, the proper underpinnings as far as preparing them for college-level English, college-level writing?
I think it's a mistake to talk about the elementary schools as though there were one single unit. There are elementary schools and public schools that are doing a fine job of preparing their students. There are others that are doing an abysmal job. We get them all the students out of the college, well-prepared ones, poorly prepared ones. I think your question is really directed at those poorly prepared ones. We have found ourselves, since initiating this developmental program of bringing writers up to speed for college-level writing, we found that there are many causes of writers not being able to function at an adult or at a college level. Sometimes this is the fault of the school system or the fault of particular teachers. but just as often it's the responsibility of the student who slept through 4 years of high school.
Exactly, and let's
who
not
simply was not motivated.
Let's not forget parents either when we're talking about motivation.
Right.
I believe that learning command of the language, learning English, learning to appreciate good literature, learning to appreciate reading as a part of your life other than something that you're driven to do. The responsibility and the motivation here very often rests with the parents. And the school system is designed to bring X number of 100 or 1,000 or million children through the system and to get them graduated. And, of course, there are always going to be a number who get by with the bare minimum. Once again, we're back in the same trap. If they get by with the bare minimum and show up on your door, knock, 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 hello, then you're the guy that's left holding the bag. It doesn't do any good, I think, to point fingers back at what happened. It's suddenly your responsibility to bring them up to par. Do you have special courses that you offer to people that perhaps are really behind the 8 ball as far as not having college-level reading ability? Do you have any speeded-up courses or special courses for these people?
Oh, absolutely. We have any number of programs, any number of classes, and other types of educational programs to help people who have, for one reason or another, and for whatever reason, gotten behind. Incidentally, I'm a great believer, and I think our English department would agree with me on this, in regarding the placement of blame for this dire situation as relatively useless.
I agree.
What we ask our students when they come to us in this kind of a condition is, are you going to sit there and try to blame something or somebody that you encountered 20 years ago, or are you going to pick up the pieces and go on with your life? And that's really the crucial issue. We have a lot of wherewithal to help people pick up those pieces and go on with their lives.
Well, let's say we have somebody that did miserably in English courses in high school, perhaps didn't graduate, and yet they're out here and they've gone to work somewhere and they've risen up in their company, and for whatever reason, whether it's because they simply want to have the pleasure of literature in their lives, or if they want to improve their writing skills for business reasons, or just to socially write to other people. What can you do for someone like this? Where do you start with someone like this?
Well, I guess you have to start, and this can be a little threatening for people, but you have to start by testing these people to find out exactly where they fall, as far as their reading skills, writing skills, etc., are concerned. That need not be, nobody's being judged by that kind of a test. It's simply a tool in helping us to place the potential student in classes that he or she can succeed in. And even at the very lowest levels, we have facilities out there through the Adult Basic Education Program, for example, that will help students who are completely illiterate to learn to read, starting out from ground zero.
Oh, really?
People who cannot even write a sentence can find a course or a framework to learn to write sentences at the college.
That's great.
This is not for college transferable credit. That would be educationally unsound. But we'll start people off wherever they are. Wherever they are. And I've personally seen people who could not write sentences, who took remedial or developmental classes out there perhaps for a whole year or even more, and then were able to go on through the college level courses. I know personally of at least one lady who did that, who went on after SWOCC to get a university degree, and she's now teaching in one of our local schools. Fantastic.
We'll take a short break here in a minute. I'm Jim Oliver for KYNG, AM 1420 News Talk Radio. Good morning, Bay Area. Welcome back. We appreciate you joining us this morning. I'm Jim Oliver. Our guest this morning is Bob Shepard, Associate Professor of English at Southwestern Oregon Community College. And before we get back to Bob, we have a couple of other news releases. This one is from the Playwrights American Conservatory Theater, also known as the On Broadway Theater. Holland Holiday Classic Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates opens November 17th and runs through December. This wholesome story of hidden treasure, a mysterious gold watch, a skating race, and the boy hero of Holland who holds back the floods by putting his fingers in the dike shouldn't be missed. Give your family a special gift this holiday by calling for reservations to Hans Brinker and the Silver Skates at the On-Broadway Theater, 269-2501. We also have a notice from Southwestern Oregon Community College, and this concerns their literary magazine, The Beacon. Southwestern Oregon Community College's literary magazine, The Beacon, will be published soon, and its staff is looking for materials to include. According to Dwight Grosso, editor, we need materials such as poems, short stories, plays, and other fiction. We also need artwork, black and white illustrations, and black and white photographs. Text should be typed, double-spaced, and all material should be sent with a self-addressed envelope so that it can be returned. Deadline for submission is December 8th, and that's sneaking right up on us, folks. So if you're an artist, a photographer, a writer, a poet, and you've ever wanted the opportunity to be published, be sure and submit this like almost immediately, and you may find yourself in print. For more information, call John Noland at 888-2525, extension 333. And one of my favorite organizations sent us an announcement. This is from the Coos Art Museum. Exciting holiday events as well as 2 new exhibitions are offered by the Coos Art Museum in downtown Coos Bay during the month of December. In the main gallery, Artisans of Southwestern Oregon Showcase 89 features fine handmade works by a dozen of the South Coast's most original craftsmen. Many of them will be demonstrating their crafts weekday afternoons up until Christmas. There will be wood turning, pine needle basketry, calligraphy, jewelry making, wood sculpture, wood carving, ceramic sculpture, pewter raising, and others. For dates and times of specific demonstrations, call the museum at 267-3901. Many of the items produced by the artisans will be offered for sale through the museum shop, and its staff will assist with selection. Also during December and through January 7th, color photographs of travels through India by Douglas Getchell will be on view in the second-floor galleries. Visitors will be treated to a festival of trees throughout the museum, decorated by local school children and youth groups. The museum will remain open until 8 p.m. on the 3 Thursdays before Christmas, with entertainment and refreshments. And there will be a gala reception for all the artists showing during the month on Friday, December 8th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. Call 267-3901 for detail. Now we'll get back to our guest, who was kind enough to come down here on this foggy, misty Oregon-type morning. Wait a minute, I looked outside. The clouds are clearing a little bit. New weather report. It's not as bad as it was. Mr. Bob Shepard, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you, John.
Do I have to watch my grammar around you, like, since you're an English instructor? Do you ever find yourself in social situations talking to people where perhaps you correct them a little bit?
I don't ever correct people in social situations.
Oh, you learned, did you?
Unfortunately, I've met thousands of people who've made exactly that kind of a comment. We can be having a fine conversation, and as soon as they find out I'm an English teacher, they shut up, they clam up out of sheer terror of being corrected. I guess
brings it all back to them, does it?
Well, I'm sure that all of us could tell our own horror stories about having been corrected until we were driven right into the ground, and I think that's happened with a lot of people. Some English teachers probably never realized that conversation is informal in nature, that it's very spontaneous, that nobody really has the time to correct all the errors in grammar that comes out of their mouths during conversation. It's just part of being alive. I don't think people should be called to task for not polishing up something that must be spontaneous.
Can you imagine how many great writers we would have lost had they had a little too much discipline in their instruction? I mean, look at Twain. If Twain wrote everything by the book, it just wouldn't be Twain.
Well, that's true. The great writers take liberties with the standard approaches to language, and they change the language. Common people do this too.
Indeed.
It takes a lot of time. But it happens.
Okay. As far as somebody taking courses at Southwestern Oregon Community College, Can the courses be transferred to other colleges, to universities?
We are an accredited college, and all of our transfer courses, those that are labeled transfer courses, are transferable. Nobody will have any trouble transferring those credits to University of Oregon or to Berkeley or UW or Harvard or Yale for that matter. They will be accepted as college-level credits. As a complete community college, we do a lot of work that is not at that traditional college level. Some of the developmental work we were talking about a few minutes ago is a good example of that. And obviously, that kind of work that is sub-college level or maybe outside of the realm of college education completely is not appropriate to transfer. And those courses will be identified in the catalog and in the schedule of classes with a course number like 5.113 or 7.265. All the transferable courses, and you have a schedule right in front of you, have a letter prefix. For instance, our literature courses are they have the prefix ENG, E-N-G, for English, ENG 123 or ENG 201, etc. Anything with a letter prefix, PSY for psychology, is a transferable college course.
Okay. What are the strong points or the strongest points of the English department at Southwestern Oregon Community College?
I would have to say that, first of all, they are dedicated professionals. Most of them have been at it a long time. They, as a group, take their responsibilities very seriously. They do not try to disguise their classes as something else. This is a bit that I was talking with Tim, your engineer, about during the break. If you take a writing class through the SWOCC English department, that's exactly what you'll get. You'll get writing. You won't get a lot of literature. You won't get a lot of philosophy or any of the other grand subject matters that kind of fall under our umbrella. Mm-hmm. However, if you take a philosophy class, you'll get philosophy, etc. We try very hard to deliver what we advertise. That's unfortunately a situation that I have not seen in effect at a lot of other colleges and universities. In addition to that, the small classes that we have out there will guarantee the student more individual attention than he or she might get at a larger school.
Oh, yeah. I've been to some schools where the professor never knew you were there.
Right, or knew you by a number rather than a
really
name.
Okay, I understand you've got something pretty hot coming up, a new special course concerning William Faulkner.
Oh, that's right. Now you're talking about the love of my life.
The love of your life. Okay, let's get into that. Why would anybody need a special course about William Faulkner? Why not just go out and get one of his novels and start reading it and become immersed in it and walk away some months later an expert in Faulkner?
This is pretty unlikely. Faulkner has picked up a reputation for being exceedingly difficult, presenting readers with all kinds of problems.
And puzzles.
He did not approach writing in any of the standard ways. He was trying to blaze new trails, and he did. And here we are 27 years after his death, and he's still presenting puzzles and challenges to readers. Now, these are not insurmountable puzzles, but they are unique, and they really require some special help, I think, in order for people to begin to cope with Faulkner rather than to be tempted to throw his books down and never get at them again. He has been frustrating to people, no doubt about it.
So you need actually some special reading approaches to understand him and appreciate what he's trying to do.
Right. You can't read Faulkner the way you read a newspaper or even the way you read most novels. He was an experimental novelist, and some of these experiments failed. Any great experimenter will have a lot of experiments that fail, and Faulkner certainly had his share of them. However, even the failures are magnificent, and the successes are some of the greatest monuments to American literature that we have.
I think it's unfortunate that many students and writers that are new at their trade or their craft have a tendency to imitate, and it's often said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, but I don't think there's anything as horrible as somebody trying to imitate Faulkner, especially if it's somebody who didn't understand to begin with. Makes an author very forgettable.
That's right. Although, interestingly, you bring to mind the fact that there is a nationwide contest right now for imitations of Faulkner.
Is there really?
It's going to be judged by some people who are well qualified to judge how successful these imitations are. And as a matter of fact, I think they're looking for the best bad imitations of Faulkner.
Oh, see, that's what's horrible, is I read a bad imitation of Faulkner, and it made it forgettable, and I couldn't tell you the author's name. If I could remember it, I could probably submit it and win a prize. I'd appreciate it if you could get us any information on that. Maybe we can tease somebody into joining the effort. We'll take a short break. I'm Jim Oliver for KYNG, AM 1420, News Talk Radio. We'll be right back after these messages. Good morning, Bay Area. Welcome back. I'm Jim Oliver, and we have one more public service announcement. This is from, again, Southwestern Oregon Community College, and this concerns their student art sale. The annual Student Christmas Art Sale will be held in the Eden Hall Gallery December 4th through 8th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. each day. This multimedia art sale of original student work is open to the public, and everyone is invited to come and purchase their Christmas gifts early. For further information or to schedule an interview, call Carol Vernon at 888-2525, extension 322. And now we're going to get back to our guest, who is Mr. Bob Shepard, Associate Professor of English at Southwestern Oregon Community College. Now, do you teach general English courses there, or do you concentrate on literature and composition? What is your function?
Are you asking me personally what I teach?
Yeah.
Yes, I teach a course it's called Survey of English Literature, which looks at British literature, the literature of the British Islands, from the very beginnings, back around 600 or 700 AD, right up to the present day, and we approach that in a chronological framework throughout a year's study. I also teach a composition course at the college level. I teach 2 developmental courses called Paragraph Fundamentals to help people who can already put sentences together a little bit to organize their ideas in somewhat larger units of communication. And that is a preparatory course for our college transfer composition sequence.
Okay. Back to Faulkner now. This particular course, I would have the question, is this an accredited course, or is this sort of a sideline for people that just want to know?
Well, it is an accredited course, a transferable course, although it may be offered. We have some applications in the works now to offer it to people on a non-transferable basis if they wish and don't want to cope with the tests and other requirements of a transferable course. So,
in other words, work almost like monitoring a class at a university if somebody's just interested but doesn't necessarily want to get into the full program.
Right, and there are people in our community who are interested in enriching their own lives without the hassle or the work, actually, in writing papers, taking exams, etc., which have to be part of a transferable course.
Okay, I understand you have gone to some effort during your life to learn and to study about Faulkner. Could you give us a little background there, some of the training, some of the people that you've met and been associated with?
Well, I suppose most important is that I once met Faulkner's personal bootlegger.
You can't get any closer to a man's soul than that.
No, you can't, particularly to William Faulkner's soul. A man named Moti Daniels, down in the outskirts of Oxford, Mississippi, where Faulkner lived most of his life. Actually, he had 3 bootleggers. I only met one of them, so perhaps I'm only a third of the way there. I've met some of the leading Faulkner scholars of our time. Probably the most noted one is Cleance Brooks of Yale University. And I've had a chance to talk with him personally. Carvel Collins of Notre Dame, Elizabeth Kerr of Wisconsin. These are all leading Faulknerian scholars. Evans Harrington of Ole Miss. The University of Mississippi is located in Faulkner's hometown of Oxford. Faulkner's antebellum mansion is right there in Oxford. I took a summer course there at Ole Miss in 1975, and we had some of our class meetings right there in Faulkner's home. We had a picnic on the grounds at Roanoke.
Any little tingles of a ghost or a spirit moving about?
Well, yeah. When you go into Faulkner's office, which is the kind of a den, really, but in the South, ever since plantation days, this has been referred to as the office, a completely male domain. You see the typewriter that Faulkner worked at in this office of his. You see a plot outline of one of his books painted on the wall so he could keep it straight himself. It's not only his readers who had difficulty keeping the plot straight, Faulkner did too. So here's this in large letters painted around a couple of sides of the wall in this office, the plot outline of the novel he was working on. There are ghosts there. And interestingly, ghost stories always fascinated Faulkner. He was a great teller of ghost stories, not only to his own children and grandchildren, but he gets them in some of his novels, too. His novels have strong Gothic elements, at times, at least.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to me the way ghosts can pop into the conversation. I recently heard a national talk show where the host invited people who had seen a ghost to call in, and it was an amazing number of people who called in, and one common thread that people seem to share, unless they're a little special as far as being outgoing, is that people who have seen a ghost usually don't want to go public with it and talk about it. So I'm a little amazed you'd get here on the radio and admit it. But it is fascinating that so many people, in visiting the home of an author that they really appreciate, the home of an artist that they really appreciate who has departed, or as Rush Limbaugh says, have assumed room temperature, that they do come away with the feeling that maybe there was a ghost there. We'll take one more short break. I'm Jim Oliver for KYNG, AM 1420, News Talk Radio. We'll be right back. Good morning, Bay Area. Welcome back. I'm your host, Jim Oliver, along with Tim Coney, just like in Coney Island, our director our producer, our engineer, fellow that walks us through this every morning and snaps me up the high side of the head when it's time to shut up and taps me on the shoulder when it's time to talk. Don't think we can make him without it. Our guest today, Bob Shepard, Associate Professor of English at Southwestern Oregon Community College. And I think we really touched a nerve with Bob. We got to talking about William Faulkner. Obviously a student of Faulkner's, obviously a man well qualified to offer instruction about Faulkner's world. I'm going to read a little bit from the publication that's put out by SWOCC. What is this?
That's this winter schedule.
The winter schedule. Boy, there's a title for you.
Romantic.
But this is interesting. Professor Shepard is well qualified to lead students into Faulkner's fictional world. He has studied with major Faulknerian scholars. I hope I pronounced that right. Faulknerian, is that correct?
Fine, yes.
Wow. Do I get an A?
You get an A.
Carver Collins of Notre Dame, Elizabeth Carr of Wisconsin, Evans Harrington of Mississippi, and Cleance Brooks.
That's
now
a
you got
Southern
me.
name. You should know
Cleance
that.
Brooks of Yale. Shepard visited Faulkner's home in Oxford, Mississippi, and met a number of Faulkner's friends and relatives, promising to bring the insights gained during a 20-year fascination with Faulkner's work into focus for this one-time course offering. And so bear that in mind, folks. This is a one-time offering. Shepard states, "This class is, for me, the culmination of my career in teaching English. I owe this course to the people of the SWOCC district, to myself, and most of all, to Bill Faulkner. Join Shepard, Faulkner, and friends for this rare class offering on Tuesday evening from 6:30 to 9 this winter term." Is this common that among professors of literature that they make a friendship with long-deceased artists and authors?
Oh, I think so, yes, absolutely. Maybe they're ghosts.
I mean, you do end up with just a personal relationship, as though the person were still alive, as though you had had conversation with him.
He is my Uncle Bill now.
Okay.
I'm not related by blood, but he is absolutely my Uncle Bill. No doubt about that.
I understand. I feel the same way about a couple of artists and a couple of writers myself. Maybe I'll read Faulkner a little bit more and get related to him. Start a relationship. I have to apologize. I didn't realize we were running out of time. Certainly want to thank you, Bob, for coming down this morning. I've enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed it immensely myself.
I hope
Thank
you'll
you.
come back again and let us know how this special course turns out.
I'll try to do that. Thanks.
Okay, I'm Jim Oliver for KYNG AM 1420 News Talk Radio. That's all for today. We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Bye-bye.